New today, Johnson & Johnson says their single-shot COVID-19 vaccine is 66% effective at preventing moderate symptoms and 85% effective at preventing serious symptoms. Although not in the 90% effective rate like Pfizer and Moderna, Johnson & Johnson is expected to apply for emergency use authorization with the FDA by next week. Joining us now to discuss the results is Dr. Philip Grant from Stanford. Dr. Grant, thanks so much for joining us today.
Sure thing.
Now, the results I'm reading are varied by country. It says on a global phase 3 trial, it was 66% effective, 85% effective against severe disease. I'm reading the vaccine was effective 72% against moderate and severe disease in the United States. There's a lot of different numbers being thrown around, I guess, based on geographically where it's located. Why is that?
Yeah, one of the most simple reasons is that it was less effective in South Africa, where there's a new variant. So that's important to note. And that's a variant that's developed since the Moderna and Pfizer studies. But that same difference was also found, as people know, in the Novavax study that was released yesterday.
So if we get the virus that's over in South Africa on a larger scale here in the United States, does that just mean that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is probably not going to be number one in terms of, I guess, the one that people would want to get simply because it's not as effective as, let's say, some of the other vaccines? Or do we know whether those vaccines are going to be effective against the South African variant as well?
In the test tube, the problem with the South African variant is the part of the virus that the vaccine's target has changed. The spike has changed. So it's expected that vaccines would be less effective, including the ones that are out, the Moderna and Pfizer. So I think, as people know, there are going to be some tweaks to these vaccines as we move forward. Much like the flu vaccine gets changed every year, there's probably going to have to be recurrent vaccination, just not a one-time thing.
But they are saying that it's 85% effective against severe disease. So a very severe case of COVID-19 is protected more so than, I guess, a moderate case of it?
Yeah, and those are research definitions. And actually, what the research definition calls is severe. Many people wouldn't actually call it severe. It was actually 100% against death and hospitalization. Protective. So I think we will get more information about how all the different vaccines will be best used together. This one is beneficial in that it's simple, a one-shot vaccine. Storage is quite simple. You could get it in your doctor's office as opposed to meeting these mass vaccine sites. So I think it definitely will have a role. Exactly how it'll get integrated with other vaccines is still to be determined. The other question is there is a two-vaccine version of this, and the study is ongoing now. So we'll get a sense of whether what the difference is if you gave 2 shots versus 1 shot.
Now, you said it's 100% effective against hospitalization and death. Obviously, no one wants to catch the virus, especially if they are in one of the vulnerable groups. But if it is 100% effective against hospitalization and death, it's still a viable option if people, can get it, because while it may not be able to protect you 100% from contracting the virus, it will protect you from being hospitalized and ultimately death, which I guess you could say is the best situation that Johnson & Johnson can ask for, considering the lower efficacy rate, right?
Right. I think there's 2 things with vaccines. There's an individual protection, and then there's the public health benefits. The individual protection, I think we're most concerned about the severe disease. And looks like most of the vaccines are quite good at preventing against severe disease. I'm defining it as hospitalizations. Public health benefit, there's 2 aspects of public health benefits. One is how many people can get the vaccine, as well as how protective it is. So in that, this is probably not as protective in overall infections. That would be a less beneficial public health effect. On the other hand, it can be given to way more people, and that it's a single vaccine, much easier to give. So I think the public health benefit actually will be somewhat similar to the other vaccines in that it may be slightly less effective, but can given way more broadly. Not everyone is going to be willing or able to go to these mass vaccine sites that are being put together. And a lot of people will just actually probably like their doctors or Walgreens or other pharmacies to give the vaccines. So I think this is this will be useful for public health as well as for individual protection.
Now, I was reading that it's, you mentioned they're doing a 2-dose, the single dose one, I guess, is the one that's going to be sent over to the FDA for emergency use authorization. It's something called an adenovirus-based vaccine, which is a delivery method for a recombinant vaccine. Ultimately, those are big words, but that just means that this is a live virus, whereas for Moderna and Pfizer, those are the manufactured RNA, the synthetic RNA viruses, right?
Yeah, it is an engineered virus, but it's the part that it would allow it to replicate has been taken out. So in a sense, it's similar to the mRNA vaccine. It just delivers the encoding instructions to the cell. Instead of in a fat droplet, it actually delivers it with the viral capsid as the delivery product. So it's, even though it sounds a lot different, all the vaccines are pretty similar in the way they actually work at the cellular basis.
So, but this is, I guess, a weakened live virus, right? Is that right? And the other
I
ones
would
are
say
not?
it's different than usually when we say a weakened live virus, that would be like a polio vaccine, where it's just polio has been changed and given as this actually is just the shell of a virus, but it's been changed so much that it really can't replicate. The shell is only in place to deliver the encoding instructions for the COVID. So that's why it's a little bit complicated, but that's how it is.
It's basically the brain behind it. So if people do see live virus or weakened live virus in articles that they're reading, don't be concerned, because this doesn't make it any more risky to your health as any of the other viruses, right?
And this type of vaccine has been used for other diseases, been around for about 20 years, and there really hasn't been any significant safety signals over that period of time.
Now, I went on to read that I guess there are some drawbacks to what's called the recombinant vaccine, that it may require a booster shot over time. But do we even know if Moderna and Pfizer are vaccines that wouldn't require booster? Because obviously the vaccine or the virus is new. We've never seen a virus like COVID-19. These vaccines are created to fight or prevent contracting a new virus. The vaccines have been available to us, the general the humans, outside of trials for a very limited amount of time. Do we know that the other two vaccines wouldn't even require a booster shot maybe later on?
I think all these will require a booster at some interval. We still will determine how long that interval is. I think we're just beginning the story of coronavirus. I think people were hoping it was going to be a short story last spring, and we're actually moving towards the end of the emergency, I hope. But it's something that's going to be with us, that we're going to have to be dealing with for the foreseeable future, I think.
Absolutely, and it is wonderful to see that more vaccines are becoming more readily available to the public. With regard to the emergency use authorization request that they're going to be making, what can we expect from the FDA panel when this particular study gets there?
I think what we've seen, even though we don't like to make too many conclusions just from a press release, obviously the FDA will review a lot more detailed documents than what we're seeing. But I think we've seen in general the press releases reflect the major details of the study prior to publication. And then I expect mid-February, the FDA will probably have finished their review and be able to give a thumbs up or thumbs down. And then later in February, perhaps early March, this will be available to the public.
And for those people, viewers and just Americans and people all over the world that are still hesitant, because I do know that there is a very large number of people that do still question the effectiveness, the safety, whether it's a legit vaccine and the government's not trying to track them. For those people, what message would you have, Dr. Grant?
I think there's a lot of different reasons why people are concerned for anything new, like any new product. And I think it's just important just to keep an open mind and make sure your information sources are well vetted, rather than looking deep in the internet to find things. All I can say is undoubtedly a ton of lives will be saved by vaccination in this case. And hopefully the more people that get vaccinated, the more lives will be saved.
Dr. Grant, we really appreciate your time. 2021 has looked like it's beginning to be even a better year than, I mean, 2020 wasn't a hard year to beat in terms of being better, but we're on the right track when it comes to this vaccine. Any last words for our viewers with regard to the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and just kind of the future of COVID, where this country and the world is moving in its fight against it?
No, I would say overall I've been very happy with how transparent all the studies have been in terms of releasing their protocols. We'll see more detailed data the next couple of weeks to people review. But overall, I think it's something that will be added to the armamentarium, the vaccines, and hopefully will allow more people to be vaccinated before summer.
All right, well, Dr. Philip Grant, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.